Good morning. This is John from the Springs Mennonite Church. Good to be with you again. Here we're starting another week. Got a whole week in front of us to see God at work and do some amazing things. And I want to continue talking about some good news, some encouraging news from the Gospel of John, chapter 5. There's a story here. It's about a man who can't walk. And the story goes, he sits by the pool because people believe when the waters in the pool moved, you could climb in, you'd get healed. But he couldn't get in. And so he had to wait for someone to lift him in. And by the time that happened, the pool was full and he was out of luck. So in that setting, we find these words from Jesus. He says, when Jesus saw him and knew he'd been ill for a long time, he asked him, would you like to get well? I can't, sir, the sick man said, for I have no one to put me into the pool when the water bubbles. Someone else always gets there ahead of me. Jesus told him, stand up, pick up your mat, and walk. And immediately the man was healed. He rolled up his sleeping mat and began walking. But this miracle happened on the Sabbath. So the Jews objected. Well, let's think about this for a minute. You feel sorry for this guy. He knows where to go for healing. He's been there a long time, but he can't get in there fast enough. So he waits for the next time, and then the next time, and then the next time. He's being pretty intentional here. And he's hanging on because he knows if he can just get in the waters at the right time, God will heal him. So this one particular day, same thing happens. He's sitting there by the water, ready to get in. Somebody gets in front of him. He's out of luck again. And Jesus comes by. And Jesus says to the man, do you want to get healed? Can you imagine the guy's thoughts? It must have been, of course I want to get here. I've been here all these years. I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. Yes, absolutely. And he says to Jesus, well, yeah, but I can't. Now, this isn't recorded here, but you can almost hear the conversation. Well, why not? And so he explains, I can't get in the pool. Jesus looks at him and says, I tell you what, just pick up your mat, rise up, and walk. And to this man's incredible surprise, he does that very thing. And he gets up and he walks away. Now, you would think that would be a great story and everybody be excited. And everybody was, probably, except for the Jewish leaders, because they were angry because God didn't do what they wanted him to do. And so they said to him, what are you doing? It's on the Sabbath. You can't carry your stuff. That's work. You can't work on the Sabbath. And the man says, hey, look, the guy told me to do it. I got healed. I'm not arguing. And then the leaders say, well, who was he? I don't know who he was. Well, life is kind of like that. God works in ways that we weren't expecting. He comes at times and we really didn't know he was coming. He lays on our hearts some ideas, some thoughts, some actions, and we do them and we're amazed. These devotionals, I started doing these last March when the church was closed because of the COVID virus. Never in my life have I done something like this. Never did I think something like this would actually work. I've done almost an entire year's worth of devotionals. And yet people keep listening. I'm as surprised as the next guy. In fact, I'm more surprised than the next guy. I didn't think I had that much worth listening to. You see, God works in our lives. He speaks to us. He tells us to do something. And we have to be able to hear him say it. This man would never have been healed if he'd have laid down and said, no, I don't think so. That's not the way it works. This man never would have experienced the joy of walking again and being normal if he hadn't trusted what Jesus said. And a lot of people today are carrying around baggage, not so much that they can't walk, perhaps, but they can't forgive, they can't smile, they can't enjoy life, they can't do a lot of things. And what they need to do is think about what Jesus says here. Now, as I've said before, I'm not telling you you don't need counseling or medical help. Those things are irrelevant. I don't mean that at all. But I do mean that we also have to trust God. If He says to us, "Hey, I love you," you need to believe it. If He says to you, "I forgive you," you need to believe it and forgive yourself. If He says to you, "Hey, speak to that person walking by, just tell them good morning," you need to do it. Because God is at work in our daily lives, even when we don't think He is. That's what happened with this man. He didn't even recognize Jesus. And later, when the Jewish leaders asked him who did it, he said, "I don't know." Now, the story ends because he runs into Jesus again and he explains it somewhat to him. But he didn't know. He just responded. You don't have to know everything to respond to God. A lot of people have lots of questions, and so they figure until I get my questions answered, I can't invite God in my life. Well, you're never going to get all your questions answered. It's just not going to happen. And even when you do get all of your questions answered, you'll have more questions. It's just not going to end it. So, what I'd like to get you to think about this week is responding to God. What can you do today, differently perhaps, in order to respond to God? What can you do today to make a difference in somebody's life? What can you do today to make a difference in your life? You know, God wants the best for us, wants it for you too. And you just have to listen to Him and respond. Well, you think about that. You got a week to think it on and see what happens. Thank you for listening. I really hope you have a wonderful week. It's going to be a good week. I just feel it. And if you have a prayer concern or a need, let us know. We'll do everything we can as fast as we can to help meet your need. So until we get together again, till you click on this site, and I thank you for listening, I hope you have a wonderful day. God bless you, and I'll talk to you again.